What's up, YouTube? Heretic here, and here with me.
Meow.
There you. That's my lovely wife, Mari. And so we're gonna talk about cities just finished up, and so we're moving on to the next portion of the season-long cycle, whatever you want to call it, season. Yeah, we're gonna go over some stuff like that and see what things are gonna look like going forward.
Okay, so kind of going into that, how was your cities run? You know, what did you play?
Well, cities was kind of interesting, I felt like, because when it started out, I mean, if I can just rewind this a little bit, it started out, you know, like they announced the XY on rotation, and I was really thrilled. So it was what I expected, but I was happy because I was like, well, we're going to get rid of Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank, we're going to get rid of like all this stuff that I don't want to see, like Seismitoad's still going to be around, but it's going to be less popular because of no Laser Bank, and all this stuff, plus Vespiquen was coming out in Ancient Origins, so they're like, hey, now we got a counter to it. And then they're, like, I was thinking, you know, I really hope they abolish Expanded completely. And then they're like, regionals are all expanded. And I'm like,
we'll get into that later.
And so I wasn't happy about that. And then I started playtesting for fall regionals. And I learned it was okay. Like, I didn't have a problem with it then. And so I never really played Standard until Breakthrough. So I really didn't play Standard in the Ancient Origins format. So Cities was interesting in that respect. Like, I went into my first Cities, which was the Indianapolis Marathon.
Yeah.
And it was a 3-day event, and I had no idea what to play on day one, because I was like, I have not play tested, like, I mean, I'm a dad now, so I have parental duties, and then, like, we had just had, like, my birthday, and we had Halloween, and then we had just had Thanksgiving literally the day before the first tournament.
Yeah, bad timing on that.
And, well, they do that every year. It's kind of like
Still
Nationals
stinky.
and the 4th of July.
Doesn't mean it's not stupid.
I know. Well, they can't do that to us in the Nationals this year. 4th of July is on a Monday. Yes. But anyway, so I go into day one and I'm like, you know, I've been toying around with this Mega Mewtwo Y Psychic Infinity deck. So I'm like, I guess I know how to play this, whatever, let's go. Hopefully I don't see a lot of Night March. Well, what dominated day one? Night March.
Let's go marching 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah.
Yeah, pretty much. So that didn't go so well. I actually did end up playing against Matt Alvis that in round 4. He ended up getting second place with pretty much the same deck that got first place as well, which we'll get into here in a moment. But while I was there, it was like Dustin Zimmerman and Kevin Baxter were playing Evil Tall Zoroark Gallade, and I'd never seen this before. It was the new fighting type Gallade from Breakthrough.
Yeah,
they were using Max's Hidden Ball Trick to get it out, and then it was like counter for Mega Manetric, colorless attack, and it was Evil Tall, so it was like, oh, so this thing just, like Blastoise, I guess, partially thanks to me, this thing just doesn't die. So I tested out the deck over the course of the weekend, stumbled a little bit on day 2, did pretty well with it on day 3, but you know, like, even though I got top 4, it just didn't really feel like it was my kind of deck.
Yeah.
So I took that, like, go back to that Night March deck that Matt Alvis was playing on day 1, Night March, Bronzong, and Vespiquen. So I was like, alright, skeleton list for an article I was working on. And I was like, screw it, I'm just going to play this the following week when I drove back to Indiana. And I got second place with it. So I was like, well, alright, now I'm going to keep working on this. And, like, no one else was playing Night March, hardly. Like, we had maybe, I think Adler played it, and we maybe had one more. I don't remember. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to keep working on this. So I took it to the next cities, and there was, like, I swear I might have been the only Night March player there. And I got second again. Stupid time literally screwed me out of a win. The stream is probably still, if you go to Twitch TV/Kimoni, it's on the screen right now. You could probably find the match video from that. I mean, there's misplays galore in there, but point of the matter is, if I had scooped up game 2 one turn earlier, I would have won that series, and I'd have had my precious Zoroark mat that I never got. But long story short, I played Night March, Bronzong, all but once with Vespiquen at let me see, 4 standard cities. And I got top 8 at all of them. Top 4 at 3, and 2 of those top 4s were second place finishes. I also had top 4 at an expanded event, and I just swapped out the Bronzongs for electrics, because nostalgia, yo. So, I mean, 140 points from cities. I would have liked 20 more, but at least. But
It's almost half.
I mean, yeah, it's almost half of a World's Invite. I mean, I have only 2 league challenges logged, so 30 points, 2 first places. So sitting at 170 right now. Not terrible, I guess. I mean, I know Squeaky from Team Fish Knuckles already. Shout out to you, buddy. Congrats on qualifying for Worlds already. Show off. Nah, bro. You know I love you. No, all right, but I mean, it was fun. I experimented with a couple other decks along the way. Fell flat, so I was like, no, we're sticking with Night March. But it's pretty good.
So you kind of already touched a little bit, but how about you expand on your earlier opinions? What are you thinking about expanded being in regionals?
Well, I mean, we went through this once already in fall regionals, and during fall regionals, we learned that Getsus is ridiculous. After, like, all this time it was legal and just people weren't playing it. You know, because now you got Night March that, you know, everyone they thought was going to be really good at Nats, and it wasn't. And then it showed up at Worlds, it was ridiculous. Andrew Mahone barely missed top cut with it. Yeah. Wish he would have made it, but anyway, we did see a couple Night March decks in Masters top 8 at Worlds, you know, and it came back. You know, people were like, oh, Night March is going to come back, but instead it was Vespiquen as opposed to Night March. So it was Vespiquen, Flareon, they do the same thing, blah, blah, etc. And then Evil Toll decks, I mean, Dark decks are always going to run around expanded because they have Dark Patch. Yeah. As long as Dark Patch is a card, Dark decks are going to run around like crazy. I mean, Seismitoad is a little more prominent because you have like Hypnotoxic Laser, Burbank City Gym to kind of bulk up the damage. You got a lot more options going there. Garbodor, who we'll touch base on him a little more later, but he's an expanded. You know, I guess if you want to get quirky with Excelgor, people don't really do that anymore, but thankfully. But it's still a card. That said, I don't really like expanded anymore because Blastoise just doesn't do what it did last summer because of stuff like Hexmaniac and Getsus being popular and
Bees.
Yeah, Vespiquen. Vespiquen's a nightmare. I could deal with Night March. You know, I could put 2 Articunos in my list and be okay, but Vespiquen's just kind of a pain because if you open a Keldeo, you just lose. It's just kind of like, you know, it's kind of like going from expanded at Performer Regionals and, you know, going into Standard. Just playing Standard in XY on for the first time, despite it was after Breakthrough came out, and just loving the format. You know, like, it's so diverse, it's so evened out, I feel like. You don't have just one deck or 2 or 3 decks that just rip up the entire scene. Like, just because Night March did the best for me doesn't mean it's BDIF. Best deck in format. But, I mean, I know, right? BDIF, or BDI Fridays. Well, no, but it's just kind of like, I really like Standard now. Because of all the options you have. Like, you can tech cards and be okay. You can play gimmicky decks and make, like, top 4 at cities. I mean, we saw it happen with Mega Houndoom. I think Mega Gallade actually won a city somewhere. Like, some other quirky stuff like that. So, I mean, it's definitely really cool. You know, you can get kind of cute with different card combos and stuff. And in cities, I mean, they're small. They're a little smaller than regionals, so you can make them work. You know, like less rounds, you can play something kind of random, catch people off guard. Whereas at regionals, you're playing a lot more rounds. You got to go more heavy consistency. But I don't know. Like, I feel like expanded. You know, like players tend to favor either one format or the other.
Yeah. Standard
or expanded. And I feel like this is actually kind of an analogy I came up with. I feel like advocates for standard format right now are like they're kind of like Democrats in a way.
Oh boy.
You know, like in standard, you know, like it's like they want the change. They want the format to change. Like the draw engine is changing to Shaman and some item cards and Battle Compressor, and it's not just all supporter. You know, like we've been used to for so long, ever since we went to Black and White on.
Yeah.
And now it's just like they're going into abilities, and they're going into alternative ways to reach for cards. You know, dump and draw, not so much shuffle draw with N being on and Shauna and Birch being lackluster. And so it's like it's a new format. It's like the game has kind of refreshed itself a little bit. But then you have expanded format, which I feel like that's like I compare the people who are just all about expanded and hate standard. You know, like I kind of compare them a little more to Republicans because they don't. It's like like you have your reasons for one reason or another, but it's like they don't like change. I'm not saying that's all of them, but it's like you want to play only expanded. Like I don't like change. I want the number one complaint you hear is lack of draw supporters or lack of good draw supporters. Excuse me. Because it's like you get Sycamore, and then what do you have after that? I mean, Judge only draws you 4. Birch is a coin flip. Shauna only draws you 5. For the record, Judge also only drops your opponent to 4, which, while it's good early game, isn't an end to 1. We don't have, like, an end that can get us 6 in the beginning. We don't have a Colress that can get us 12 or 10 or 16 if there's a Skyfield out.
Colress.
Oh my god. Like, we don't have stuff like that. Like, Laser's gone, Seismitoad decks have definitely taken a back seat. And you gotta use Shaman, which people are like, well, that's a liability. It's 110 HP EX on the bench. And they can just Lysander kill it. And they're absolutely right. But, that's just kind of the way the format goes. Like, I don't know. Like, I personally prefer Standard. I like seeing the format change. I like to one-shot things. Night March one-shots things. I don't have to worry about an end to 1 or, like, getting laser bank donked on the first turn if I lead a Joltik. Which I think is why people favor Vespiquen Merge expanded. I mean, it gets some cards that have been around for way too long kind of out of the card pool. It keeps it circulating. It keeps it fresh. So, I don't know. Obviously, if it was my choice, I'd rather just play Standard. I see that people's argument about the lack of consistency, but in a way, I think it evens the playing field, because in Expanded, even when new sets come out, it's the same 3-4 decks that dominate. You have Dark, you have Vespiquen Flareon. Like, you can play Night March if you want to. It's just an alternate version in its own way. I mean, I'll get more on that later. And then you have like Blastoise, and you can try to rogue a little bit. Like you can play like Toad Bats or Toad Giratina. These are all decks that existed before. Like Giratina is the only one that wasn't around before, that didn't exist prior to, just before the rotation with Ancient Origins.
Yeah. All
the rest of them, it's like Flareon was a deck, it just used Leafeon instead of Vespiquen. Otherwise, the rest of it is like all the same. Just like a tech here, like a new card here, a new card there. Everything's also just like, oh, okay, so we're just gonna look at last year and just kind of move it over. I would rather just the game continue to progress forward.
Okay. Well, I think you might have just answered this question a little bit, but obviously everybody's been practicing Standard because of cities, and now we're moving to Expanded. So what kind of decks would you recommend for the Expanded Regionals?
Well, I mean, I think that really depends on play style and all this stuff. Like, we have tried and true proven decks, like I was just mentioning, that have been around for, whether it's been 6 months, or I guess, in some people's minds, I guess Blastoise has only been around for 6 months, but like, I think it's pretty clear to me the top 2 decks being Flareon, Vespiquen, and Dark variants. Yveltal, Darkrai, you can run Maxi, you can run like Archeops to counter Vespiquen if that's what you're worried about. You can run Gallade to counter like Mega Manectric, because I know people play that with Garbodor. And the Tool Drop Trubbish, they kind of cute with that. Like, I don't know, like, again, I think it depends largely on play style. If you're an aggressive player, I would go like Vespiquen, Flareon. You could still play Night March. I have a pretty solid argument for Night March, although you do have to beware of the Laser Donk. And also, Blastoise is obviously an explosive OHKO deck. If that's my play style, like if that's your style, I would say go with one of those. If you're more a control style player, Seismitoad variants are always good for that. You can, I'm not sure how good Garbotoad is, or Toad Garb at the moment. Probably could still get something out of it. Toad Bats is probably a little bit better. I would definitely say that's a contender, or Seismitoad Giratina. It's pretty solid. I guess in the aggressive deck list, or deck pool, I forgot to mention Colorless Mega Rayquaza. Mainly because Xander Bennett just kind of made that thing go crazy at Fall Regionals. 3 Hoopas. 3 Hoopas. Good God. Anyway, I mean, that's just, like, Seismitoad variants in general. I don't really see Vileplume doing much right now. Like, someone will probably rogue it and do well, but as far as, a mass showing, I don't really see it doing that. Mainly Seismitoad and Giratina variants. You know, like, you could go Giratina, Reshiram, Turbo, too. But in Expanded, I think it's probably Seismitoad for control.
Okay, well, there is kind of another factor into playtesting for regionals, and that's the fact that new set is coming out and going to be legal. So,
yes.
I mean, what do you think about the BREAKpoint set? Is it good? Like, what kind of cards do you think might impact it? Do you think any of them are going to be played or run?
I definitely think that we will see cards from BREAKpoint played on the final weekend of regionals, which is the only weekend that it will be legal, because the set will be out, but it's 3 weeks from its street release date, not its pre-release, its street date, which is February 3rd. So February 24th is the official, if I'm not mistaken, is the official date of when the set becomes legal for a competitive play. So the final weekend, the Florida, and I believe it's Oregon is the other one. I know there's 2 regionals that weekend. And we saw this last year at the Florida regionals as well with Primal Clash. The new set will be legal. It'll be fresh. You know, like, people probably have been playtesting it, but, you know, and I think that you know, that's very relevant. Do I think it'll create any new archetypes by itself? Probably not. I mean, as far as making a new archetype, you know, it's got some neat little concepts going on there with, like, Golduck Break, Greninja Break. They're still Break evolutions, let's face it. You know, and you got, like, the whole, there's a supporter card called Delinquent that lets you randomly pull 3 cards out of your opponent's hand and shuffle them back into the deck if there's a stadium card out. So it's like Hooligan's Gym and Cast, but instead of a coin flip, there just needs to be a stadium.
Pretty easy.
Actually, I don't think it lets you pull random cards. I think your opponent actually chooses what 3, but whatever. Play a red card and then get rid of 3 of their 4, and I think Zorua has an attack that makes them shuffle a card from their hand back into their decks, and then you just get rid of the last card that way. And then just like, okay, you're top decking now. Oh, by the way, my stadium of choice was Silent Lab, so have fun.
Oh, boy.
And if you really want to be a douche, you could play a Clunker and try to get Vileplume out after you play the red card. That's just way too much, though. That's a theory. I'll definitely toy with it, but I don't expect it to be all that competitive right now. Because I feel like too many things have to happen, and you have to do it on turn 1. You know, and then it's just like, you can't use Zorua if you go first because you can't attack. So it's like, okay, well, then my opponent just got a card, and if they got a turn, then they got the setup. That's it. I think you're going to see some of the cards included in decks we already have. Max Potion's coming back. That's huge.
Yeah.
If Fairy decks want to make a resurgence, that's the way to do it. I don't expect that they'll do well right away. I do think people will try them on that last week. But Fairy decks still struggle if you can just OHKO all their attackers. Granted, like Mega Gardevoir or Mega Mewtwo, whatever you choose to play with it, or, you know, like, they have higher HP, so it's more difficult for Night March, Vespiquen, Flareon to deal an OHKO there. But it could still happen, or they could just kill you before you Mega Evolve. Especially Night March, because they can just attack before you get a chance to evolve. Fighting Fury Bell was another one. It's a Pokemon Tool card that you can only attach to basic Pokemon, and I don't know why. It should say not EX either, but whatever. It gives it's like a new alternative to Muscle Band. The attacks only do 10 more instead of 20, but it gives it 40 more HP on top of that. So it's like, what the heck are they thinking? Like, now that Seismitoad's doing 40 instead of 50, but it's got 210 hit points.
Waylord!
Oh my god.
Waylord! Bow down before your Waylord.
Yeah, it literally becomes what? Now it's 290, so it's just 10 short of that, you know, that Crystal Wall Black Kyurem that no one ever played. That's it, still pretty hilarious. I mean, I'll take a 70 HP Joltik, 100 HP Pumpkin, and in standard format come states, that could be huge because there's no Hypnotoxic. So, like in Expanded, they can just go Muscle Band Energy, Laser Bank, Oblivion Wing, and you're still dead. Granted, it's a few more resources, but in Standard, they won't be able to do that. So that's kind of a fun little card. Puzzle of Time is another one. This kind of brings back memories of Pokédrawer Plus and Oh, there was another one. I forget. There's 2 cards like this at least. There might have been more, but it's an item card where you can play one, and it lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, rearrange them, and put them back. So it's like, okay,
Smaller Pokédex.
yeah, it's like, okay, whatever. But you can also have the option to play 2 at one time out of your hand. And if you do that, the effect's completely different. You take any 2 cards from your discard pile and put them in your hand. So it's like if you wanted teammates out of your discard pile instead of your deck, let's just teammates for 2 puzzle of time and then play them both simultaneously and grab out of the discard.
Sableye.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say next. An expanded, like being an expanded, this would like this Sableye Garbodor deck that runs around now with Bunnelby and Trick Shovel,
I hate
and
that deck.
they junk hunt for days. Like now you can just junk hunt for 2 time puzzles and just go. It's like, well, now I'm not limited to just 2 items. Now I can get 2 whatever I want. Like, who needs VS Seeker? Seriously. No, you still play VS Seeker, but you just play 4 puzzle at a time, and all of a sudden you just blew up that much more. Like, well, now I can just get back anything. I really don't care what you do now. Like, oh, I'm out of energies, I'll just take one back. It's like it's like they got rid of Trump Card and they wanted to do another way to kind of bring all this stuff back. And I hope that no one finds a way to break Toad Lock decks again, like Toad Shaman with Trump, with this card to the point where they just recycle their item cards forever. The benefit being that if they want to rip through their deck that quickly, they are going to deck out. I guess that's the benefit, is that the deck out aspect is still there, whereas with Trump Card it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I really hope that doesn't happen, and I'm a little worried about that because I hate control and lock decks, and so obviously I don't know. I'd rather that wasn't the case, but I mean, Seismitoad's kind of tough to knock out anyway, so if you're in a teammates, you gotta wait for a KO, and so I guess we're taking some kind of prizes there, unless it's a Robo-Sub. You can teammates off a Robo-Sub knockout. That's pretty ridiculous.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's considered a Pokemon.
Yeah, even though it doesn't get you any prizes. Night March and Vespiquen now, and this is big with, like I was mentioning, like fighting Fury Belt, 70 HP Joltix, 100 HP Pumpkaboos. And that's pretty significant. It doesn't work on Vespiquen and Flareon, obviously, because they're stage 1s.
Yeah.
So we're sticking with Muscle Band there. I like the idea. I think that Night March and Flareon Vespiquen decks alike should just forget about running computer search, and take advantage of something I fell victim to at an expanded city when I was playing Night March Eels. Is the only cities out of 6, 2 were expanded and 4 were standard, is the only cities out of 6 that I did not make cut with Night March. I was 2-0, round 3. I go up against Flareon Vespiquen. He goes first, plays his Pokemon down. I take my turn. I take the first knockout. Shaman never saw the board, except, well, not on my side. On his side, he benched it only to Sky Return into my Joltix for a knockout. So I was ahead 1 prize, and then he would tie it up, and then I would take another prize, and then he would tie it up. He attaches a Life Dew to his freaking Vespiquen.
Yep.
And my one Lysander was prize, so I had no way around it. And so I had no choice but to knock it out. And then, of course, we're still tied at prizes, because I don't get one. And I wasn't running a Megaphone that day. Or a Tool Scrapper, I guess, would be the choice in Expanded. And so then he KOs me, and now he's up by a prize. Well, Shaman's never going to stay on the board, so that ended up... I literally lost to a Life Dew. So I did a little more playtesting with it. Guys, if you're going to play Night March, or if you're going to play Vespiquen, or any of those decks like that where you're trading 1 prize for 1 prize like that constantly, play the Life Dew. I'm serious. It's that good. Just, like, I mean, it's like people always ask me, why do you play Acrobikes? Like, I don't like Acrobike. But Trainer's Mail can't get me a double colorless energy. Double colorless whiffing, although you consider, like, oh, you play 4, you shouldn't whiff. But it happens. Let's face it, it happens. So, I still kind of like to split between Trainer's Mail and Acrobike, but play the Life Dew, guys. Seriously. In either one of those decks. It really is that good. Yes?
And play the Megaphone.
Well, in Expanded, you'd be playing a Tool Scrapper.
But I like Megaphone.
Well, I mean, I guess if Tool Drop were to take off, you could do that, but I don't know. I kind of I guess Scrapper's just all around considered the better play because you can take away flare tools and shenanigans like that.
Any last minute thoughts?
I mean, I guess they finally when I was at my very last cities, I overheard someone groan and complain about how they were upset that that states is standard. So of course I started like cheering for joy on the inside when I heard that, because and that's going to be really interesting going forward, because a lot of players, unless they're going to a week 3 regional, are just going to take Breakpoint and go right into standard format, I feel like, with it. Which means that those results from expanded regionals, from week 3 regionals, aren't going to mean a whole lot to them. You know, maybe a little bit, but it's like, you go into standard, and then all of a sudden Night March really does become a lot better than Vespa and Flareon. I still like it in expanded, because Night March can attack on the first turn if it goes second, and if it goes first, you're still going to get an attack before the Vespiquen player, because unless they're playing Forest, they got to take a turn to evolve. You don't. Just don't leave a Joltik up to get Sky returned. I learned that. Otherwise, no. That would probably be my last bit, is just states. You know, it's kind of cool to see them going back to standard, because we know they're going to go back to expanded again for spring regionals. And hopefully nationals and worlds get played in standard. Like, you don't want to know how mad I would be if those end up in expanded. Go ahead and call me a donkey, guys. That's fine. I won't take offense. I promise. It'd be the truth anyway. But yeah, I think that's about all I got. I mean, I'm excited for Breakpoint. Like I said, I don't think it's gonna make any new archetypes. I just think it's gonna add cards to decks that exist. But you know, stay creative, everybody. Hopefully we do see something different. Hopefully maybe someone makes Mega Scizor work. I don't know. I'm just throwing a random idea out there. I got no idea. Brownie points if you can make Greninja Break consistent in a tournament level deck. That doesn't include league challenges, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I think that's about all I got for now. Hopefully, whatever's after Breakpoint, since it'll be coming out in May in the States, it'll probably be pretty broken. You know, kind of sets that come out in May in the United States, the last set before Nationals and Worlds, it tends to be pretty busted. Roaring Skies, I guess Flashfire was kind of an exception, although it did give us Lysander. Plasma Freeze.
Pyroar was a big deal at the time.
That's true.
But at the time.
Plasma Freeze, you know, like the entire Team Plasma deck. Dark Explorers. and Black and White at its time, you know, that was a pretty busted set when it came out. Juniper, Reshiram Zekrom, Emboar. Just like Reuniclus, you know, the Truth deck happened. Like, that stuff was definitely played.
The truth is out there.
It is. But the cake is a lie. What happened? Did I just step through the wrong portal?
Just keep talking.
Anyway, I think I'm going to kill the rambling for now. I am not certain as to which, if any, winter regionals I'll be attending just yet. I have my eye on Illinois, potentially Virginia. I guess it's Collinsville, Illinois. It's technically more like St. Louis. Like I said, Virginia, and if I can make it to Florida, I'd really love to be able to do that. What?
Nothing. Go on.
Well, Professor K from Pokemon Evolutionaries and I want to do a crossover video, so I guess it kind of has to be Florida regionals for that, unfortunately. But you know, I still wish they were standard. I'm gonna stop wasting your guys' time though. I'll see you later. Cheers.